This is going to be a very interesting video, to say the least. Well, as you might expect, this game picks up right where Kingdom Hearts 1 left off. You have just defeated Ansem and you're looking for Riku and the King. And somehow you're on this grassy field thing. And you see Pluto starting to chase him. This game picks up where that left off and you wake up in the middle of the night and you see a man in a robe. Which, that is something that Kingdom Hearts does quite a lot. Figures in a robe, and that is the catalyst for the entire adventure. Following this man, he ends up in Castle Oblivion. And during those cutscenes you can already tell, even though this is a remaster of a remake, this game doesn't look as nice as Kingdom Hearts 1 does. There's a lot more like blurry scenes and altogether it just doesn't look as nice. The anti-aliasing isn't quite there. It's just, you can tell that this is closer to the original PlayStation 2 version than Kingdom Hearts 1 was. One thing that I will be positive about though is the story and the writing in this game. It's much more mysterious, and that is maybe where the whole thing of the Kingdom Hearts plot being convoluted as shit started. People point to Kingdom Hearts 2 for that being roughly okay, but still starting the whole convoluted thing. I think if you're looking for a place where the convoluted plot started, it's pretty much right here, because the writing is very cryptic and very mysterious, and that is exactly what I love about it. So I can see a lot of people not enjoying that, and you're very right by doing so, because it's not clear and obvious whatsoever, and it's definitely more so enjoyed after Kingdom Hearts 2. So people saying that you need to play this before Kingdom Hearts 2, otherwise you don't understand the beginning of Kingdom Hearts 2. You won't understand the beginning of Kingdom Hearts 2 either way, but you will understand this game better if you play it after Kingdom Hearts 2, and you might enjoy it a lot more. So getting into Castle Oblivion, your characters forget all the abilities, all the spells, everything they ever knew, because gameplay convenience, really. And all those abilities are replaced by cards. There's a couple of different kind of cards in the game. There's your most basic kind of card, which is the attack card, which is just a Keyblade card. Pretty much every single Keyblade from Kingdom Hearts 1 has its own card with ever so slightly different effects, but usually you won't notice the difference in what kind of Keyblade you use. Then there's magic cards, which I guess you've got Cure. Then there's item cards, which really help with reloading those attack and magic cards, which we'll get into that in a little bit. And then there's Heartless cards, which give you special buffs for either a certain amount of card uses, a certain amount of reloads of your deck. Every single card has a number. You might think those numbers are to represent the power and the effectiveness of the card, but they actually have nothing to do with the amount of power a card has. It has more to do with the fact that your enemies also attack using cards, and if your number is higher than their number, you can actually break their attack and stop them from attacking and attack yourself. But also the other way around works as well, of course. So this game is based on cards, but it still is an RPG, so you still do level up. And when you level up, you can choose one of 3 upgrades. Increasing your HP, which, of course, that increases your HP. Increasing your CP, which is card points, which allows you to add more cards to your deck, which you will want to increase this the most out of any stat. And learning new slates, which you can stack 3 cards on top of each other to add them up to a certain value, and some slates do require you to use 3 different kind of Keyblades, and some require you to use a summon card, which is a certain type of magic card, and 2 Keyblades, or a magic card and an item card, or whatever. There's a lot of combinations you can do, and really there's only a couple of good ones. The story is presented to you through, like in Kingdom Hearts 1, cutscenes and a lot of speech bubbles, but this time around there's actually a pretty obvious divide between the two of them. Everything that happens in Castle Oblivion generally is voice acted, and everything that happens within the Disney worlds, which are just rehashes of the first game, take or leave a few worlds, everything presented to you by speech bubbles pretty much, more or less, isn't important and you can ignore. In those voice acted cutscenes it seems like Sora went through puberty really fast, because holy shit, his voice sounds nothing like any other game.
Seriously? Me too. One look at this castle, and I just knew. Our very best friends. They're here.
The worlds you visit are, like everything in this game, based on cards, giving you a lot more variation as to what the order you want to play them in is. So you'll get a batch of cards and you can choose which one to do in which order. Then getting into that world will consist of a lot of rooms, which you need to progress from one room to the next using room cards, which you then get from defeating Heartless. It all sounds very convoluted and very complicated, but really it isn't. It's all just based on cards. This game has a real big card fetish. And you'll immediately notice Donald and Goofy don't go with you into the worlds or any other fight. They will be transformed into cards for you to use as well. So they're pretty much like summon cards. Goofy just hits a couple of enemies by spinning around, and Donald just uses a spell. They also can be used in sleighs, of course, because everything can. Going through your first couple of worlds, going back into Castle Oblivion after every single world, you run into Axel, and this is a guy you want to get memorized for sure.
Who am I? Oh, my name's Axel. Got it memorized?
More important than Axel though is that Sora, Donald and Goofy are actually starting to forget the events of Kingdom Hearts 1 slowly but surely. They try to think really hard about everything that happened, try to flash back to things, but it isn't working. They keep forgetting everything slowly but surely. Meanwhile, we see these black coat people more and more, and it seems like they are part of an organization. And they are the ones who are being cryptic, because if they just talked right out to each other, there wouldn't be any mystique and mystery in the story anymore. So we've got to be very, very cryptic with their dialogue. And again, I can understand this is annoying to a lot of people, and this might not be seen as good writing to some, but I actually personally love it. As Sora starts to forget more and more about even Kairi of all people, he starts to remember Naminé, and that's not just for no reason. Naminé is actually a character within Castle Oblivion, and she is being forced by the organization to meddle with Sora's memory so they can turn him into a puppet and overthrow the rest of the organization. You see, the people here in Castle Oblivion are just a part of this organization. We don't actually see or hear from any of the other members, but they are apparently higher up in the rankings, and the people here want to use Sora to overthrow them. That all happens within the first batch of worlds, and then you go into the second batch of worlds, and within those is 100-acre wood. You got rid of Deep Jungle, Square, but you kept 100-acre wood. Why would you do such an evil thing? A good thing though is that you do run into Riku after a little bit, but he seems to be back into the darkness. He seems to be a bad guy again, acting evil and trying to fight you. And his fight is actually pretty tough and a little bit annoying, and worst of all, you have to fight him multiple times. Luckily though, this is where we get to breaking the game, because that's very, very easy. There's two sleighs which are very overpowered, and one of them is Blitz, which you'll get very early on into the game, and then Sonic Blade, which you'll get a little bit later, but still fairly early on into the game. Both of them require you matching a certain value with 3 different kind of Keyblade cards, and it's not that difficult to construct your deck to only use this slide. And when you do, and add a High Potion or a Elixir or Mega Elixir at the end of it, it becomes ridiculously easy to beat pretty much any boss. The only things that are immune to you are things that fly if you use Sonic Blade, but that's what you have Blitz for. And it's always just mashing X button and using your normal attack combo as well. That's only a good thing, because the gameplay in this game is not very well made, but the story again and the writing is something I do enjoy. So let's listen to Axel talk about feelings and having a heart and all that kind of stuff, but in a very cryptic way.
You have my sympathies from the heart. But don't waste your time. We nobodies can never hope to be somebodies.
This only really matters if you've already played Kingdom Hearts 2 again, or this one even after playing 3D. For the time being, it's just a bunch of strange dialogue or monologue even, but that's what I love about it. Again, I know a lot of people won't. I do. Just give it a chance. Please, just don't judge the game before starting it. Give it a chance. Maybe you'll love it like I do. And then after the second batch of worlds, you run into Vaxen, who has been the one messing with Riku. He is the one responsible for making Riku the way he is right now. And from here on out, you start getting only one world card at a time, meaning you don't have any choice anymore in the order of worlds you progress through. But you do also start with a brand new world called Twilight Town. Again, if you've played Kingdom Hearts 2, you know what's so interesting about this. But this card is not made up of Sora's memories, but the memories of, like Vaxen says,
a card crafted from all the memories that are locked in the other side of your heart.
Again, we'll get to that in my Kingdom Hearts 2 video. And seeing as how Twilight Town isn't a reused world but something brand new, there's actual story in this world, which story inside a world? What sorcery is this? Even better, this world is very short. It only has a key of beginnings. Usually there's a key of beginnings, a key of guidance, and the one that's got a heartless symbol on it. I don't know the name of it off the top of my head. But this one only got the key of beginning, so is there no boss fight in this one? Actually, there's only a boss fight in this one. And what's more, it has got voice acted cutscenes before and after it, not just speech bubbles. I know, I am surprised too. And spoilers ahead, I mean, I guess I've already spoiled quite a bit if you made it this far into the video, but Vaxen dies in a very well executed scene.
Please don't! I don't want to!
Goodbye.
After that, going back into Castle Oblivion, Riku seems to be already waiting for you. And Vaxen's death doesn't have seemed to change anything, and to make things even weirder, you have memories with Namane, which Namane didn't even exist in your memories before this, but Riku has those exact same memories with Namane, even down to the good luck charm you both have. And while this is all happening, behind the scenes we do see Axel starting to manipulate the whole bunch, so he can actually stop Marluxia and Laruxine from taking over the organization, because he is still loyal to the organization and kind of just wants a lot of people dead that's in the castle right now, so he's working on that slowly but surely. So far all the worlds have been relatively in order for the Kingdom Hearts 1 storyline, but the next one you go to is actually the first world you ever see in the entire series, which is Destiny Islands. And that's where you start to slowly remember Kairi again. And of course we get more Riku after that. But Riku pretty much kind of dies. And even after everything Riku did, everything he said, Sora still cares. Even though if he wouldn't have, Riku would have killed him. So I know Sora's like the perfect good guy, but come on. Luckily though, the thing that's laying dead on the floor right now turns out not to be Riku, but just a replica made by Vaxen. Convenience. And we meet up with Namane, which tells us she's been messing with Sora's memories and answers most of the questions you might have. I say most because she doesn't answer every single one, since you do need a reason to buy and play Kingdom Hearts 2 after this. But seeing as how Sora's memories have been messed with a lot up until this point, he actually starts to feel for Namane what he felt for Kairi, meaning that it kind of made her feel safe, because Namane is in danger because of the organization, and Sora remembers a promise in Namane. He would protect her, so he was going to protect her from the organization now, and it's actually very, very smart. I don't know if this was the intention in the writing for Namane to sabotage everything from the beginning and make Sora just beat everything up and save the whole thing, or if this is a coincidence that I'm seeing after the fact, but I still think it's such a really good little detail that's written in. Going into the last world, Castle Oblivion, which is absolutely enormous. And then, after going through that entire world, you are finally ready to face the final boss, but it seems like Riku Replica is somehow still alive. Nobody really ever explains how he's still alive, because it seemed like he was, like Laruxine said, broken, or well, dead. He isn't, and he wants to fight Marluxia with you, but then in the fight which follows immediately after that, he's nowhere to be seen, of course, and he's not even a friend card you can get, which that would have been a nice touch. And of course, since it is a Kingdom Hearts game, the final boss is a multi-stage boss. You start with a one-on-one fight with Marluxia, and then you have a fight with Marluxia, in some kind of hovering thing, which Sonic Blade won't do you much good here. And then you have a PlayStation 2 and 3 and 4 exclusive fight, which wasn't in the GBA version, which is actually very, very interesting. The second form of militia messes with your cards, making them invisible for you. So you can still use your cards, you just can't see which cards you're using, making it a very effective and fun way of messing you up a little bit. The last form of militia, though, just straight up scatters your deck over the stage, which is not a way of messing with your cards. I do prefer the psychological way rather than the physical way of scattering your cards around, but it still is interesting. He does mess with your cards in both the boss fights, and I think that's something this game doesn't do a lot, unless it's the final boss fight, of course. You've probably gotten used to your deck like you have it right now, especially since you probably mostly have Sonic Blades, let's be honest. So the making your cards invisible is just a psychological thing, because you probably roughly know what cards are where just from memory, even if you don't think about it, and it's just a panic thing. And the second one is actually more consequential, meaning that you do need to get your cards back. You can't just not mind it and keep mashing X, which does work when your cards are just invisible. And this final boss fight introduces dueling. We'll get to that actually a little bit later on. After defeating Marluxia, Sora goes to sleep to restore his memories and all of that, but he will forget everything that happened in Castle Oblivion. So Jiminy writes down "thank Namine," so they will remember to thank her when they wake up. In the credits you see Riku Replica is going on to a journey of his own, and you see a scene of Roxas foreshadowing Kingdom Hearts 2. Again, we'll get to that when we get to that. Post-credit scene is a shot of the organization with a lot of empty seats. So this is everything left of the organization after we cleaned up Castle Oblivion. Well, that has been Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memory. The second, there's a Riku story. It's called Reverse Rebirth. You play as Riku in this story, and it's much shorter. Riku wakes up in the basement of Castle Oblivion, hearing a voice guiding him up the castle. The order of the worlds Riku goes through is slightly different, but not that much. For instance, he starts in Hollow Bastion, which does make sense, because after getting away from the islands, Sora starts in Traverse Town, and Riku gets into Hollow Bastion, where he starts becoming a bad guy at first. It all does make sense, him being in Hollow Bastion for his first world, also in this game. Nice little touch there. The worlds, except for Hollow Bastion, are much shorter, only having a Key of Beginnings, which has a boss fight for you. Hollow Bastion has all 3 keys because it has to set up some story elements and stuff, but Riku is pretty much just like a glorified boss rush, really. There is some gameplay differences though, because Riku doesn't have any deck building. Riku gets a generated deck for every world he is in. Some of them are very powerful, and some of them are very not powerful. Him leveling up does very different things as well. I mean, HP is gonna do the same, of course, but instead of CP, he can get AP. Since he doesn't have to build a deck, CP isn't going to be any useful for him. So he gets attack power, meaning he'll just do more damage. And instead of Slate, which he doesn't have, he can get DP, which is Dark Power. We'll get to that into a little bit. The voice guiding you up the castle turns out to be Ansem, who is somehow still alive. And he also acts as a tutorial, which is very convenient. He doesn't just straight up murder you. And he tells you about dueling. The thing that happened in Sora's final boss fight is actually a main mechanic in Riku's story. When you break a card with something that's of equal value, you get into a duel. When you win that duel, which just means you have to, within a certain time period, break a certain amount of cards from the enemy, you actually do a very powerful special attack. And there's also D mode, which is what DP is used for. By breaking enemy cards, you build up DP, and then when you get to a certain point, you transform into your Dark Riku mode. And you become much more fast, much more powerful, and you can actually start to use a couple of slates. The most powerful of which requires 3 9s and is Dark Aura, which is pretty much his equivalent to Sonic Blade, but you can't spam it as much since you can't build a deck around it. And when you get hit or when you get your cards broken, you lose dark points. So you want to stack up as much DP as possible when leveling up, so you can stay in dark mode for a little while, because it actually is much more powerful. And if you are in dark mode and you do a duel, those special moves actually are different moves and much more powerful versions of those moves. So dueling in dark mode, apart from each other, very powerful, combined, murders everything. For most bosses, you pretty much want to defeat them with dueling, nothing else. In this basement, we actually run into other organization members. Not that it matters, because every organization member in this game except for Axel dies. That's why you only need to remember Axel from Kingdom Hearts 2 and beyond. And these people can smell darkness? I don't know what this game's obsession with sense is, but honestly, just make it sensing, not smelling. Smelling is weird. I get it makes for some fun dialogue maybe, and maybe in Japanese it sounds a lot more badass, but it just sounds kinda weird, to be honest. And these organization members are smelling Riku and they're like, this smells similar to the scent of the Superior, which of course is their leader, which is a really cryptic way to build up something that we'll get to in Kingdom Hearts 2. But again, that is what this game does. It builds up for Kingdom Hearts 2, but in such a cryptic way that you won't need to play this before Kingdom Hearts 2, because you won't understand anything. This game, again, is best played after Kingdom Hearts 2, or maybe played again after Kingdom Hearts 2, so the puzzle pieces all fall into place. You will not understand, I repeat, you will not understand most of this game if you don't have the context of Kingdom Hearts 2. So, saying you need this to understand Kingdom Hearts 2 is just bullshit. And since we saw Riku Replica survive at the end of Sora's campaign, what happens with him? Well, he runs into Riku, and that sets up some kind of identity crisis plot, which is actually probably the most well-written thing in this entire game. In Twilight Town, which Riku also visits, this plot reaches its conclusion, where you fight Riku Replica and just straight up murder the dude. That's just a little part of the Twilight Town story, because you also run into this, which is where the story of Riku actually becomes somewhat relevant, and you kind of want to play this maybe before Kingdom Hearts 2. But again, I would actually recommend not playing this before Kingdom Hearts 2 for spoiler reasons, which I'll get into probably in my Kingdom Hearts 2 video. And then Riku goes to meet Namane, which she gives you the choice: sleep, like Sora does, and I'll get rid of your darkness, or you have to face the darkness and with that Ansem by yourself. And of course Riku's like, I'm not gonna sleep like that loser, I'll fight Ansem. He couldn't destroy him apparently, I'll do it. Which brings up so many questions, because they are talking in front of the port where Sora is sleeping, but Sora was in Castle Oblivion, so how did he get to Twilight Town? And moreover, how did he get to the card version world of Twilight Town, which King Mickey just gave to Riku? And then in Kingdom Hearts 2, he is in the actual physical Twilight Town. It doesn't make any sense. Remember how enormous Castle Oblivion was in Sora's campaign? It's hilariously small in this campaign. And the final door before you fight Ansem requires a total card value of 13. That's a nice little nod to the Organization 13. I can't remember if in the original game for the GBA it also was 13, or if they changed that in the PlayStation 2 version after Organization 13 was already introduced. And of course Riku does kill Ansem again. And then the end scene makes Riku choose between the road to darkness or the road to light, which is his whole theme in this game. And he chooses the road to dawn, which goes down the middle, using both the light and the darkness, which is some straight up great Jedi shit, and I love it. Also, yes, I have just seen The Last Jedi, and that's why I compare this to Star Wars. In retrospect, this game is very, very well written and gives you a lot of leads that they use on later into the same game and other games brilliantly. The game seems like it's about memories and just forgetting stuff, and on the surface it very much is, but underneath that it very much is about what being you actually is. What is your identity? What is it made of? What does it actually mean? It's a quite deep and existential Kingdom Hearts story, really, and that is why I love it, even though it's just played with cards.